So Lana is from or has a consultancy called Lanalytics, which is a pretty awesome name, can I just say? And she's going to be talking to us today about GA4 and content measurement in action, which I don't know about you, but is something that is, for me, really close to my heart, in that I fully believe in the value and importance of analytics, but also since GA4 has come around, I have felt really at sea in analytics in a way that I didn't prior to that. So Lana is a GA4 expert, and today she's going to give us some real life examples about where having data has changed things for a number of organizations that she's worked with. She's also going to talk a little bit about AI and how it changes the way that people are finding out content. She has worked for a number of organizations, including Air New Zealand, Gov UK. Hello, there's a shout out there. We found out when we were exchanging emails that Lana actually worked with Sarah Winters, who is obviously the codifier of content design, and we do the training here in Australia for that. So it's like a really cool. I actually have questions about that alone, Lana, which maybe we'll have time for. And yeah, she helps clients make the most of their data with dashboards, GA4 setup and training, and helps teams build data cultures so that they can own their performance and get the best results. So I'm going to hand over to Lana. If you have questions as Lana is talking, feel free to put them in the chat. And if we have time, we'll try and get to them at the end. All right, Lana, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Maggie. Yes, hello, everyone. It's awesome to be here. Hello from Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington in Aotearoa. I see a few more Kiwis in the chat. Hello, and hello to the Australians too. So yes, I'm Lana. I run Lanalytics, and just a bit about me. We specialize in large content-driven sites for Google Analytics for large content-driven sites. And we provide dashboards and reporting, GA4 training for teams, GA4 and Google Tag Manager setup support, and also AI optimization or content optimization. So yes, thank you to McGee and Angus and everyone at Weave's Content Strategy and Design for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you and give you some case studies about showing content measurement in action. So a bit about me, I started my digital career actually creating content after completing a BA in English Lit. But I became fascinated by the users using the content. So how were people engaging with my content? And I realized that data could reveal the behaviors and psychology of our users. So I also found the persuasive power of data. I was working on a site which was really not user friendly and kind of was using data as a defense at the start. So, and then, yeah, as McGee said, I got my first pure data role working on the gov.uk beta, where the whole ethos was designed with data. And I had a chance to really help create a data culture within the content team. And we'll look at a case study from there. And so just to start us off, I'm going to share my screen, get into presenter mode.
We can see that.
Great, cool. So yeah, what we'll cover. So today we're just going to talk through what is data good for, measuring the impact of Google AI overviews, meeting user needs with search data. I saw El Girati's talk a couple of months ago, and I really loved it for this meetup. She talked about scale, and I thought that was really interesting, thinking about site performance versus page performance, the different measuring techniques we might use. And also using audience insight to inform content. And then what's next in the measurement space? So what is data good for? Now, I don't know about you, but for me, the best kind of reason is improving the user experience. And I think that's what we all think of first when we think of data, just making things a bit simpler and easier for people, opening up channels. It's also good for prioritizing work and stopping doing pointless stuff. When we see what is popular and what isn't getting visited, we can really easily make decisions on what we work on. Understanding our audience, and this is key to really creating successful content, as I'm sure you know. and proving what you already know. This is maybe a surprise, but a lot of my work is actually, someone will come to me and say, I don't think this is working, but we need data to prove it. It's kind of key usability principles shown with data. Getting buy-in for changes. And this is again, we know something's wrong. We need to convince senior management that something needs to happen. And also showing your organization the value of your work. Now, I'm not a fan of vanity metrics like most people. However, I do see the value of share session users. If your website is a bit of a Pandora's box, people no one knows, or a black box, no one knows who's visiting it, and the value it provides. So that is a key thing for a lot of my clients as well. So first, let's look at meeting user needs with Search Insight. Now, of course, the way that people find our content is changing, and how people find our content is key to performance. As we'll see in these case studies, channels shape our audience, and any measurement strategy needs to take this into account. Now, thinking about AI, which of course is transforming the digital space, AI usage is still quite low. We need to kind of keep this in mind. So ChatGPT had around 6 billion visits in August 2025 versus Google, which had 80 or 84 billion visits. So yes, ChatGPT is growing, but it's still Google that's really driving our traffic at the moment. And AI engines only account for a small fraction of the website traffic for the sites I work on. So this talk is largely focused on website performance because they're not going anywhere soon. But of course, Google AI overviews are having a big impact on our traffic. So we can see through data that the presence of an AI overview in search results correlated to around a 35% lower average click-through rate. So yes, if there is an AI overview there, fewer people are clicking through to your website, if there's an overview in search results. Now, Google hasn't given us clear data on our performance in AI overviews or even click-throughs to our website. We have to create special filters for that. It's a little bit grey, but right now I'm going to show you how to use Search Console data to diagnose this. I've done a bit of research on this, and this is the best way that I can see for most of us to see whether AI overviews are having an impact. So we're going to look at Search Console data, and you do need to have had an account set up for your website. Search Console shows us the Google searches leading to our website. So it's key data. We need this data. And you can see here's my account. I'm just going to show you on my account how to see this drop. And so we're going into the performance section of Google Search Console. All we're doing is clicking on compare. We are comparing the last 3 months year over year, because this will show us before and after Google AI overviews came into place. Now we can see a list of the website queries leading to our website. And I have clicked this button, which is clicks difference, the difference in clicks. So before you see, this is showing a drop, basically any ones that have had a drop. Now, my website is not the best example for this because I don't get a huge amount of Google traffic, but for you guys in your large websites with lots of content, I've been seeing really prominent drops here for different keywords. And now, say this was a larger number for digital performance dashboard. All I do is I try it out in Google search, and here we go. I see a Google AI overview coming up. And that is not definitive data showing that this is the reason for the drop, but we can make assumptions on that's what's causing it. So once you've had a look, what do you do about a drop in traffic? Now, this depends on your goals, your users, and the platforms you publish on. So our strategy before might have just been get more traffic to the website. That might have been our kind of strategy, but now we need a more nuanced approach. And we need to respond to our audience using data. So we need to be clear about our goals. We need to understand our audience with data. And we need to create a content discovery strategy or search strategy to meet those goals and customer needs. And then we need to test and experiment. There's no rule book here. There's no, clear, strong guidance about what we need to do. We need to see what works for our context. So I'm still in the experimenting phase when it comes to AI content optimization, and I'll be back when I've got some measurable results. But in the meantime, Ruth Hendry shared some really good content principles in the last We Are talk for this. And I also rate search data. So whether you believe that SEO is dead or that SEO is more important now than ever, search data is from people articulating their needs in their own words. It's data gold. It's data in words, which is lovely. So use search data to understand what people want. So if we have a look in searches in Google, here's a case study. Now, Te Papa is our national museum, and they wanted, in 2016, they wanted to increase the reach and engagement of their Matariki content. So Matariki is a celebration of the Māori New Year. It's a time when people come together to remember their ancestors, share food, sing, tell stories, and play music. So it's a wonderful festival. And now Te Papa hosts an annual Matariki festival with free cultural performances and activities, and they wanted to increase the reach and engagement of their online Matariki content. So to do this, we can look at, well, I looked at Google Keyword Planner. Google Keyword Planner shows what people are searching for in Google. So it's a really great resource. Now you have to sign up to an AdWords account. You have to enter your credit card details. You won't be charged. And they do try to hide it because I think they realize a lot of people like me use it to get free keyword insight for it's designed for us to use for paid ads, but we can use it for organic search. But all I did was search for Matariki in Keyword Planner and found some really popular terms. So Matariki Facts was getting 1 to 10,000 searches per month. Matariki Star had the same volume. So we can see here Matariki Facts and the volume of searches per month. Then you get the kind of details, Matariki Facts for kids. I could just see kind of a dad on his phone, and the kid asked, "Dad, what's Matariki?" And he's like, "Oh, have a look." You can kind of see these patterns come out in data. But the content designer at Te Papa at the time, Rachel Hockridge, she created a wonderful Matariki Star Facts page, pretty direct using the data. And it very quickly started appearing first in Google for these searches. And in the first couple of months, the page got over 6,000 visits, which is pretty good for a new page when it was published in June 2016. And, you know, in those years, it's gone up. Basically, Te Papa has created more Matariki content based on these keywords, and they've really, expanded this Matariki content. And in 2016, they got 27,000 sessions, which included a Matariki page. Last year, it was 168,000 sessions. And over the years, that is just, you know, that's probably 1 million sessions over the years. So it's been a great story. So note that Te Papa is a trusted site with a government domain, and they have a huge head start with SEO and AIO. Small to medium businesses need to take a different approach. But search data can help shape our content, shape our newsletters and social posts, even our service offerings. You know, this is what people want. Now, we can also use Google Trends as well as Google Keyword Planner. It allows you to compare popular search terms to see which is more popular in Google. And it also allows you to see trends over time. So for example, with our Matariki example, in New Zealand, you can see since 2004, Matariki kind of spiked up over the Matariki period, June, July each year. 2016, when we started this project, it was just getting a little bit more each year. It gradually increased, then COVID, of course. And then in 2022, it became a national holiday. So we can really see this trend reflected in the data. And you could say that Te Papa caught the wave of Matariki, you know, just for riding on it. But I really think they nurtured our understanding of the celebration, and in turn helped it become a national holiday. They did revive a lot of this understanding. So it was a really great project to work on. And then, you know, now 2025, we can see, so this is the Te Papa's Search Console report, which they've kindly shared. And we can see they're getting affected by the AI overviews too. They've had a drop of 7,000 clicks to their website for Matariki stars. If we Google Matariki stars, we can see the AI overview. We can also see Te Papa is in the references. Te Papa is the first blue link, but of course they're not getting that traffic. So Te Papa are monitoring the impact of AI on website visits and developing a strategy to get the highest visibility in AI summaries for the topics they have authority in, of course. And you watch the space, I might be back with a Te Papa AI case study soon. So just a summary, how can I use search data to understand my user needs? So use Search Console to see whether Google AI overviews have caused a drop in click-throughs to your website, and also use that to see what Google searches lead people to your website currently. What traffic are you currently getting? What do they need? And then use Keyword Planner and Google Trends to find new content opportunities. So now we're going to get onto website performance versus page performance. And it's this idea of scale and how we need very different measurement techniques to do different jobs. So we're going to start with page performance here. Now, this is important, but it is hard, and GA4 doesn't always have all the answers. So I'm going to show you how hard it is. Basically, I've tried to include quite transformational case studies, my favorite case studies in here. They may not have used Google GA4 data. It might have been universal analytics, but everything is still applicable to GA4 data. But as well as those big case studies, I've tried to include smaller, lighter touch case studies that we can all do with our GA4 data at home. So let's just have a look at the journey of trying to see page performance for gov.uk. So of course, gov.uk kind of contains all government information and services over in the UK. And I was there at the beta, and our aim was to just make things simpler and easier for people. Just remove all the duplication, all the difficulty, all the kind of difficult language, and get it really simple. And so I was in the content team, and I held a workshop with them to find out how they wanted to measure content. And I made the mistake of building them what they asked for. As anyone will know, that's usually a bad idea. Any user research person will tell you. They wanted this. They wanted daily visits for you could search for a URL and see this information for each URL. So they wanted daily visits, daily engagement. I think that was time on page, and daily Zendesk tickets. And now these were on-page feedback. This was each time there was an on-page feedback, which and a data engineer, I worked for the data engineer who spent a lot of time building this impressive tool, but it wasn't used, unfortunately. So it was back to the drawing board. And at the same time, I'd been playing around with on-page searches. So in Google Analytics, you can do this in GA4, you can find out what people are searching for on each page of your website. Now, this might not work for some of you, some of your sites, but gov.uk was so huge and had such a lot of users and people looking for things that there are a lot of searches. And on this page about paying your car tax, there were 6,000 searches for SORN, which was about declaring your vehicle off-road so you don't have to pay vehicle tax. So all we did was add a link to SORN here, and the searches dropped by 95%. So you can see here that's a drop in, sorry, the slides are a little bit fuzzy, but you can see here that's a drop in almost 6,000 searches just for that one link. And I just think that's a really good example of making things a little bit easier and quicker for people. So you kind of use that knowledge, and this is the next attempt at a measurement tool for the content team. This one is just it's a Google Sheets. We use Magic Script, which did feel pretty magic at the time. You could pull in Google Analytics data into your automated through your Google Sheets. So here we've just got a dashboard for the visas section of gov.uk. We've got all the pages in that section, and we've got them listed by unique page view, so visits. We've got the volume of searches on each of those pages because they indicate what people aren't finding, so problems that we could address. And then we've got the number of user comments, so that those are those Zendesk tickets where there's on-page feedback. And of course, most people were just complaining through that on-page feedback, so that suggests a problem. Now, it wasn't just the tools, of course. I gave the content team training on Google Analytics. I gave them these little post-it notes to put on their desktop to show them how to find the key reports in Google Analytics. When a designer kindly made these nice little stickers. And this ended up being this function actually ended up being on the actual public facing site. So it doesn't exist anymore, but you could type info into any gov.uk page and see the data view of that page. And so here we've got unique page views for the car tax page. We've got problem reports, those Zendesk tickets, and we've got our searches. And even the searches that were being made on that page. So that became quite useful. Now, if you've got if you just for yourself want to understand how to use GA4 to measure page performance, this case study might be for you. I gave training for the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment recently, and we looked at page performance in here. So we looked at GA4 insights for the building performance site, which informs New Zealanders about the regulations they need to follow in building projects. And, at the start, we found out in training that website visitors come from Google to deep level pages, like most large content driven sites. So page performance was really important. And we looked at the performance of the top 2 pages on the site. So the first one, and now this is the important point to make, content performance is not one size fits all. We've got to define the intended use of the page. If we don't have those overall metrics like gov.uk, we've really got to think, what is this page designed to do? So this one is a browse page. It's designed for people to find an onwards path through these links. So they go to the things like safety, energy efficiency, moisture. There's dampness is a problem in New Zealand homes. And if people leave the page quickly without scrolling, they don't engage, it doesn't matter as long as they follow one of these links. So we were able to check whether people took an onwards path in the GA4 path exploration. Now this, I would really recommend looking at this for all content designers. And I'm just going to put this in the chat now. I've done a little video tutorial on this, just a 2-minute one, which might be of interest to you guys. Just shows you how to use it. It's basically like a tree diagram of people's onwards journey in your site. It's very cool. It's a new GA4 thing, so worth looking at. And we also can see the exit rate. How many people are exiting from this page? We don't want this from a browse page, but we want people to take an onwards path. So again, we need a custom report, a free form exploration for that in GA4. But we could see that the page was performing as intended. People were clicking on those links. Now, this is the other popular page, and it's a deep level content page. The purpose of this page is to enable people to download PDFs and click out to information on external sites. And GA4 data showed they were doing this in large numbers. So to track events such as downloads, external clicks, there's a scroll to 90% event that you can turn on in GA4. There's an event drop down in the standard pages report in GA4, which shows you event volumes against each page, which is super useful now. And again, if that sounds like gobbledygook, I'm going to put a link. I've done another little tutorial on this. So I'll put a link in there. I think these might be useful for you guys. Now, so, for this, I know for this page, we wanted people to download PDFs or click out on external links. I know for your flat content pages without calls to action, it's hard to tell engagement versus confusion. And I still find this, engagement time, scroll rate, are they finding what they need, or are they just getting frustrated and giving up? But so what I tend to do is look for Google searches leading to the page. What are people's needs from this page, and are they being fulfilled? I look at internal searches. Are there anything around this topic that people aren't finding that they're searching for? And even things like calls to contact centers, on-page feedback can be useful. So how do I measure page performance? Here's a little summary. Are there, just check, are there measures that give actionable insight across all content? And you can experiment to see if there are. If you're just looking at a page, a one page, define the function of your page and use GA4 data to see if it's being used as intended. Check data beyond the page, on-page feedback, call center data, on-site searches, anything that can show maybe dissatisfaction or that people aren't getting what they need. And again, get the data used. Communication is everything, and we'll keep returning to this. It's not the data and the tools are often quite a small part. It's this getting everyone using them and just talking about it in your team and learning from each other. So yeah, so going from page performance, now we're going to scale up to site-wide performance. And here's the gov.uk example for this. So this is a different team. I was in the transition team. We were bringing agencies onto gov.uk. And so this dashboard is showing the transition, the project progress. We've got the agencies that have been transitioned and their status, product gaps, user research. Now I love putting user research quotes on dashboards. It just brings the data to life. It brings the users alive. And here we've got this is GA4 data, gov.uk visits, just seeing how visits have been affected by bringing each of these agencies on. So they were bringing on things like the different government agencies onto the site. And site search exits, we were working on site search. So of course, exits aren't great when you've searched for something and don't find a result. So that was there. And we've also got this contact rate. We're coming back to the Zendesk contact on-page feedback. So now these were split into citizen contacts and government contacts. And what happened was that when one agency came on to the site, we were able to see a huge spike in government contacts. And I was able to take this dashboard and show senior management, hey guys, there's problems here. We need to address this. And we got a post-transition analysis process put in place to work out whether new content was working. So we got action taken, and data can be very persuasive like that. So how do I measure site performance? Now, I really like dashboards for measuring site performance. They help you tell the story of your performance. And I actually want to talk about that. I know people feel under pressure to have KPIs for site performance or just encapsulate your whole website performance in a few measures in a dashboard. And I think this can be quite dangerous for large content-driven sites just because we have so many different audiences, different content sections. You can have completely different behaviors going on and they can be good for one content section and maybe not so good for the other. So I try to kind of steer away from KPIs for large content-driven sites, but I know they're necessary sometimes. And I would just say, if you're doing a dashboard or any reporting, try to tell the whole story of your performance. So many performance things are out of our control. Like, Google makes a change, AI overviews come in. We just need to have that context. So if our KPIs start to drop, we can tell that story. And if you are having a dashboard, the main problem I see with dashboards is that they get too overloaded with data and they don't get used. So I just say I try to keep it to one page on a dashboard if I can, only use the most insightful measures. And again, shout about the data. It needs to be communicated in meetings and to the senior management board. It's only alive if you're sharing it. So now we're going to look at using audience insight to inform content. So understanding our audience is crucial to creating successful content, and channels actually define our audience. So for example, the Google audience generally has a high intent, or the organic, the unpaid Google audience has high intent and engagement because they are seeking out your content. The social audience often just has low engagement because they're curious, that they're exploring. But of course, social users can become Googlers, so we need to consider the whole user journey over time. If we look at another case study from RNZ, now this is New Zealand's public multimedia broadcaster, and the goal here was to bring people back to their website. But now, of course, we're increasingly seeing brands, people interacted with brands purely through AI and social media. Our websites are becoming not they're not the sole focus of our online activities now, for people to engage with us. So, you can shop through Instagram, you can register for events on LinkedIn and book appointments through Facebook. All of these really important interactions are happening outside our website. So we need to find out where our audience is and meet them there. And it will take collaboration with marketing and content design and all the user data we can get. It's really important. So as I said here, this case study looks at bringing people back to the website, but the process we used is the kind of work we need to do now as things change so quickly. So RNZ came to me and they had a theory that their audience was loyal, engaged, older, and frequently visited the website. They basically were getting a lot of traffic to their website and they didn't know much about these people. They have RNZ are probably most well known for their radio programs, which are I listen to them, I really enjoy them. And they knew a lot about their radio listening audience. They had done a lot of demographic work on this, things like their listening audience were more likely to buy fine wine and cheese than the general population. I love this stuff. We're getting like into this into the details. But I did a deep analysis of the website audience, and here's the obligatory spreadsheet image. The reality was that 70% were young and news hungry. They didn't even know RNZ as a brand, and they only visited one page. So it was very different. The audience were very different to what RNZ thought. And we could see as we dug deeper, we found one of the main channels was from the iPhone home screens. You get your news reports coming up there. I clicked through onto one of these, and at the same time, I could see from the Google Analytics real-time report that 400 other people were doing the same thing. So this change of the understanding of their audience really changed their strategy. RNZ reduced homepage efforts. Before, everyone wanted a piece of the homepage real estate. They were clamoring to get on there, and now we were able to say, well, most people bypass it anyway. I held SEO training, so Google traffic increased 33% year to year. Part of that was also adding title tags and AMP, which are accelerated mobile pages to the site, just to really enhance that the Google optimization. We also trialed having related links to encourage this audience to explore. They've blinkered one page, but these didn't work very well. And it was funny, the only pages they worked on that I saw were recipes. If you had a recipe and had a link to a related recipe, hundreds of people clicked through. But other than that, they were inherently quite a blinkered audience, and they just wanted to look at that one page, probably go back to their iPhone home screen, go back to their social feed, and that was it. And this is it. I think it's important to have an understanding of what to expect from these audiences. So we also did radio program dashboards. So for each radio program, Saturday morning, which used to have Kim Hill, who was a bit of a national treasure, I did this for the producers, and we're seeing visits to their content that spike up on Saturdays when the radio program is held. Traffic sources, they were doing a lot of promotion, so that was really key. Things like top pages, on-demand audio, the audios they were listening to, traffic from social, which again, really, we need to have that audience view for the different channels and site searches. And, the producers found out things like emotional stories do really well on Facebook, that their audience was often mobile first. So to optimize things for mobile, they were able to see what didn't work and stop wasting time on that. And they were also able to see that old content was sometimes coming up in these dashboards and performing well, so they could regenerate that. And yeah, I did other things with RNZ, a social media dashboard, and we used a news data platform called Chartbeat. But the main thing is that we found we just need different tools for different teams to understand different audiences. So now we'll go back to MB and our building regulations website and look at audiences for this. And for these, I love a quick view on audiences. I love to use GA4 comparison filters. These are in the standard reports, and they allow you to compare different audiences in a high-level view. So here's my or the Lanalytics GA4 account, just to show you, I don't mind showing you my data. I've created comparisons. They're just up here in the standard reports for an engagement overview at the moment, but you can be in any of these. I've made a filter, a comparison for desktop traffic versus mobile traffic. And I can see right up here that web traffic is highly engaged with 3 minutes and 46 seconds on my site, whereas mobile traffic is only 39 seconds. So you can go through and just see the differences between those two audiences on all of your reports. It's really useful. So for the MB website, we were able to see that the mobile users, there was strong signs, this is only in a very short analysis kind of training period, but strong signs that the mobile users were DIY newbies. So they were searching for high-level Google queries to reach the website, like building code, building act, these things that don't show a really strong pre-awareness of the content. They are more likely to visit on weekends. And the top referral site was trade tested. So this site was getting a lot of traffic from a trade store. You can just see people in the weekend going in and talking to someone, an employee of the store, and saying, I need to sort my pool out, or I need to put a fence up, and getting, oh, you need to look at this regulation. The desktop audience, it looked as though for most of them, building rules were part of their job. So the usage spiked on weekdays for this audience. They were more likely to Google acronyms like NZBC and E2 to reach the site, which indicate an existing knowledge of content. So there, with a quick analysis using comparisons, we've got quite an interesting view on those two audiences. And here's another website dashboard, and I just want to show you a great fun. I use Looker Studio a lot to do website dashboards. I find it pretty user-friendly. It has its quirks and frustrations, but generally it's quite good. And this is for Digital Pacific. These guys are really cool. They bring in cultural artifacts from across the Pacific, from totally different sites around the world, and kind of link out to those different sites. So it's kind of a central place to discover these Pacific Island artifacts. And what I love is in Looker Studio, you can pull in your audience filters. So you can create audience filters in GA4, quite complex audience filters, or just those, people who visit a particular content section. Pull them in, and then you can filter your whole dashboard by these, what you've selected. So for example, this dashboard, we've got National Library of Australia. There's the Trove was in there. We've got all these different organizations, and the content was tagged up with these organizations, so we could filter to see content related to each. So how do I find out about my audience? First of all, deep dive into your data, get that foundation understanding. Then think, do your audiences and goals align? And you can find opportunities within the data. Get the right tools to monitor them over time. Things are changing, of course, so quickly. We really need to keep in close touch with our audiences. And in GA4, we can use comparisons in the standard reports to get that quick level view, mobile versus desktop. Or we can use GA4 audiences in our Looker Studio dashboards to filter really easily for different audiences. So now I'm going to talk about going kind of beyond GA4 on our websites. I've alluded to this, but in a recent GA4 update, Steve Gannon, who's the Director of Product Management at Google, he encouraged us all to gather and review all our sources of digital performance data. And he said that it will be much easier to import external data sources into GA4. This is really interesting because it acknowledges this changing digital space where things are happening outside of our websites, and we do need that complete picture. And attribution gets harder to measure. It's harder to see what channels are generating traffic, and people convert and engage with us in so many different places. So we need to look at our call center data, our transaction data, any digital performance data we can get, and social media data, and find trends and insights across the whole space. So just a summary of kind of my top insights around measuring content. You don't need complex data tools to make a difference. I've seen people scrolling numbers on their whiteboard every week and that working perfectly fine. It really is about the people and the communication. And small data insights can make a big improvement. So we saw with Matariki, those searches, just by creating a page or gov.uk, just by including a link on a page, we reduce searches. We can get really good results with little data. Test your assumptions and answer your questions with data. It's not like you can just go into GA4, unfortunately, and be like, tell me how my website is performing, tell me how my page is performing. AI might improve this, but it's not happening yet. And we really need to have theories and test them. GA4 data is good for high-level trends. It's not an exact science. I probably should have said this at the start, but we know with the cookie privacy regulations coming in, it's just really difficult to get a pure view. And of course, GA4, you'll get contradictory volumes and results in different reports. So it can be very frustrating, but it does mean that we can just go to that high level view and check for high level trends across different reports. And yes, tools and dashboards give a voice to the user, but it's communication and collaboration that will improve things. So thanks everyone. Really, again, thanks for listening. And yeah, if you need any help, I'm happy to chat. We can help you use data to drive your digital strategy or provide you with light touch training and dashboards. Sign up to my newsletter on the homepage of the website. I send out lots of case studies and kind of guidance. And also on LinkedIn, I follow all the SEO, AIO, GA4 blogs so that you don't have to. And I kind of summarize the things that are useful. And I also cover a lot of these case studies on my website. I probably will share my slides if you're interested in exploring the things that we've looked at today. So thank you, everyone. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Lana. That was awesome. And particularly awesome that you have a newsletter. That means we don't have to read all those blogs about what's going on. Because I actually think that's part of the problem is there is so much to understand that, yeah, if you're kind of primarily in a content world and you're just trying to, dip a hand in, it can be really hard to like bridge the gap between the amount of knowledge that's out there. There's a couple of questions I'm going to go back and ask them, but I will just say that I like to take quotes down as people kind of do their talks. And a couple that stood out for me from you, one of my favorites was, I made the mistake of building them what they asked for. I just feel like that is like whether it's analytics or like actual scope delivery, like just not going deeper to understand the purpose behind something. That was, yeah, very, very cool. Other things that really stood out to me from your talk that I thought were really interesting was, and I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about, was that problem of the measurement, having a single metric or a few metrics that are meant to represent how you're performing. Because I know kind of back in my like ANZ days, banking, very, very kind of data focused place, it was really about, here are the three things, and we're always trying to make those three things move in one direction. So yeah, I'd love to hear you sort of talk a little bit more about how that how you bring an organization on the journey of not paying attention to only a few metrics, and what kind of things you look for instead, yeah, or how you tell the story instead.
Yeah, sure. That's a really good one, Miggy. I think, and it is a hard one because clients come to me and I can say, I don't like KPIs till I'm blue in the face, but they need them, their management to keep their jobs and prove the value of their work. They kind of need to provide KPIs. So it becomes a challenge. But what I usually do is kind of get the KPIs, okay, we can have this as a goal, but it is that context. So you'll see on the dashboards that we looked at, you're seeing the whole context. So you might have, sessions might be a KPI. We want sessions to increase by this much. Or contacts, it's a lot easier if you've got some kind of conversion, like you want people to inquire, and I consciously left out those case studies because I think there's enough on that, and that's the easy stuff. Whereas when there's not those clear call to actions, I think it's a case of, okay, what are our goals? but then providing the context. So our context comes in our traffic channels. With AI overviews, it's a great example. We can see Google traffic has decreased. I might put those Google searches up so we can see exactly year to year what's happened. And then we'll have our top pages. Okay, what are people looking at? Like what user needs are we fulfilling? And we'll probably start to see some of those finder those informational content, which is what is being affected by Google AI overviews. That's what's dropping. And yeah, I would just have the whole picture of data and not the whole picture, just a page, just so that if things do drop, we can provide that context. And I think people understand when we can say what's happened and if we've got a response to that and we're going to change our strategy, we're going to change our KPIs.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go back and ask a couple of questions that came up in the talk. So Lorraine asked, when we're choosing page and website content metrics and KPIs, do we need to do anything differently now that we have AI search in the mix? Any particular metrics that are more or less useful?
Well, I'm finding sessions are dropping considerably for the websites I work with. And so I think that is the key, kind of that's probably the KPI that most of us have and that will be the most affected. And I just think, unfortunately, it does really depend on your strategy. I think if you might want to change, I think most of us do want to change our KPIs and be like, look, our traffic has dropped, but we're still appearing in these overviews, and unfortunately, we can't have KPIs for AI traffic because they're not really, the data isn't good enough. And unless we pay $10,000 a year to get an SEO tool, and even then it's very unformed. So I think we need to kind of hold a bit of uncertainty in the space and communicate that. But I would just this ever increase. I'd stop that trying to get the ever increasing sessions. What we've seen from AI overviews is that the traffic drops are coming from informational content, and this is for large content driven sites. This is a lot of our content. So the question is, do you want to try to regain that traffic, with other kinds of content, or do you accept that we've lost that traffic and try to take other measures? And this is where I think, unfortunately, we have to look at call center data. We have to look at things. But I would say, again, it is about deep diving into your data and looking what's happening with your users, with your website, and with your goals.
Awesome. Great answer, Lana. I love holding space for the uncertainty. We definitely need to do that. Yes. Angus mentioned, and I agree, that you have set a new bar for all speakers going forward, which is providing video tutorials that go alongside your talk. We would suggest that in future. I've got a couple more questions. I've probably got time for one more, actually, so I'll ask Kathy's. Kathy said, thanks for confirming my instinct was correct. Site-wide numbers in and of themselves are not useful, and we should be doing targeted analytics of individual services and content pieces. So that was a really great comment. And Melanie responded saying, further to this, things like bot traffic on Google's reporting methods can have a major impact on numbers that stakeholders don't understand. I'd like, actually, if anyone wants to pop in the chat their experience with helping stakeholders understand this, I'd love that. Okay, we've got one more question from Lorraine. Not sure if this is still a concern as Google is not deprecating third-party cookies, but do you have any alternatives to GA4 or ways to prepare for post-cookie life?
What I've been looking into, I got recommended one. The names escape me because I haven't worked recently with them. I've been too busy with GA4, unfortunately. It's finding the time. But what I'll do is there's a couple I know that I've heard about, and I'll try and get those into my slides, which I'll share. What I would say is when I have looked at other tools in the past, I think I looked at PWIC, and it might have changed. This is a while ago, but they just don't have the detail and granularity and the ability to manipulate data, which I need. However, I think there are new tools coming which probably make things easier. And but what I would say is like with the cookie stuff, I've looked apparently the server side tracking, you can get all the it's just not worth it for most of us. The cost, this is getting more accurate tracking. It's just not really worth it. So it will
Nothing that
depend on your
stands out.
needs. Yeah, it depends on your
Yeah.
needs.
All right, I'm going to take over the share if that's okay, and just do a few announcements that people have dropped into the chat. Thank you so much, Lana. That was fantastic. And yes, I'm going to be going away and having a think about some of the things that you have said today. One other thing that I wanted to say that I thought was awesome was bringing in those user research quotes, like the user quotes into the dashboard. Like I think marrying that kind of qualitative and quantitative stuff, which is something that Elle Garrity spoke about in her talk too, like the context setting is like really, something we can, I think, all take away from that. Yeah. So lots of people said thank you. I'll let you have a scan through the chat and see the props that came through. And there was a couple of announcements, which I will just run through really quickly. Feel free to pop any others in the chat, guys. Sandia said, I hope I pronounced your name right, said that if there's any roles going, she's looking at the moment, so feel free to connect with her through the email that she's posted there. Elle has posted about the Sydney content strategy meetup, which is a wonderful in-person meetup if you have a chance to go. So I love this audience member. Cool, Elle. That's really cool. So it's going to be audience prezos this time around. That's really cool. And training coming up, which there are links to. I think that is it for the announcements. Brilliant. Okay, so from our perspective, we have another meetup, which is going to be Eileen Webb, talking about building connections. And this is going to be a talk about kind of from the relationship soft skill side of content, like how important it is to build up actual human relationships with people if you want to deliver great kind of content. So that's going to be a really great content talk. And then in November, we're going to do our newly kind of a new tradition of having an in-person end of year meetup. So we're going to do that in Melbourne again in November. So we'll announce it on the meetup group so you can put it in your calendars and come along and have a drink and get to meet all of the crew if you are in Melbourne, or if you're in other places and you want to travel down, feel free. We have the past talks on YouTube. So if you've missed a talk or if you want to go back and rewatch and see something that you missed that you thought was really great, you can now access that through our YouTube channel. And we have one more training up this year for the Content Design in Action course. So this is the Content Design London course that we teach. This is the kind of used to be called advanced, but really it's kind of more about projects. If you've got anything, if you've got any significant big projects coming up that are going to be about doing a lot of content, this is a good course for that type of project to go in with. And that's going to be on the 13th and 14th of November. Lovely. That's everything. I'll let you all go about your days. It was lovely to see everyone, and we'll see you next month. Bye.